Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to another Sewell Leader Live event. This is our fourth week that we've been trying to come to each of you. Just as a reminder, if this is your first time to join us, we were going to host our Sewell Leadership event for the 14th year. John Maxwell is going to be, as always, one of our signature guests, as well as the gentleman who's with me today, Jeff Henderson. And we were going to celebrate in a big way with 14 years. Jeff had been with us a couple of years before, and obviously things have changed. Life is not what it was. Life is not what we thought it was going to be. And we are approaching what looks like a brand new normal. But one thing I know will always remain true, and that is the importance of not only what we think, but what we believe and how we conduct ourselves as leaders. So I've said this each time, I want to say it again. I feel like one of the top responsibilities of a leader is to, number one, define reality. Number two, to offer hope. And number three, to take massive action. And so what we've tried to do over the last few weeks and what we're going to do today is do one of those three things. We're going to help you either define reality as you know it today. We're going to find a way to offer you hope, not just for yourself, but what you can do for the people in your families, in your community, and your companies. And then also specific action of what we can do to really try to make a positive impact with the people around us. So Jeff, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us from the Atlanta region. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Colin. I think I just need to close in prayer after that. That was phenomenal. Why am I here? That was so good. So thank you. I was very, very encouraged by that. I'm always encouraged by being with you. You know, the times that we talk and text, you lift, you described this with your conversation with John and Mark when we started this a few weeks ago. You really lift our chins and put us up toward a higher vision. So thanks for that. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're honored to have you. Well, as many of you may know, but if you're not familiar, Jeff has spent time not only in the for-profit world, but also in the non-for-profit world. He spent time at Chick-fil-A as a remarkable leader there. But now he is a leader of the Gwinnett Church, who their average attendance in person and maybe even more online is about 6,000 each week. And Jeff, I thought, there's always been this tension between the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world. And really, if you're for one, do you not get to be for the other and vice versa? So I thought maybe this morning you could help us understand, since you've seen both sides of that coin, can you help us see it from both perspectives and help us understand what could we learn from your experience and how we could be better leaders in our community, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit?
Yeah, Colin, I think a bottom line is for business leaders that it's no longer about being the best company in the world. It's about being the best company for the world. And that kind of sounds like something a nonprofit leader would say, and that's the point. I firmly believe that there's a lot that I, as a nonprofit leader, can learn from the business world, because I've been there, and I love and have huge respect for business leaders like yourself. At the same time, I think there's a lot business leaders could learn from nonprofit leaders. And if you think about it, the business world is described as the for-profit world. This is what we're for. And then nonprofit, we're like purpose. So it's like you got profit over here and you got purpose over here. But here's the exciting thing. Even in challenging days, I think we're going to talk about this, even in challenging days like this, there is actually an opportunity here. And the opportunity, and this was before the crisis hit, that purpose fuels profit and profit fuels purpose. And the more purpose that you have, the more profit that you can have. And what we're seeing in market research and market demographics is that customers are asking, what are you doing for the world? And we're seeing this shift happen right now where companies are understanding, hey, let's clarify our purpose. Let's help make this world a better place. And I think that's going to be excellent business strategy going forward. So I think one of the things that business leaders can learn from nonprofit leaders is how do we have a really good product and combine it with a really compelling purpose? If you have a great product and a great purpose, that's a competitive advantage.
That's interesting. Well, so how do we get there? I mean, how would you think that would work? I mean, could you share that with everybody? I mean, it's one thing to say that we have this compelling purpose in this product, but how do we get there? How do we process that in our minds?
Yep. So we're going to ultimately, it boils down to two questions. And the reason I wrote the book that we're talking about is I told a mentor of mine, hey, I've been really blessed. I was able to work for Chick-fil-A a multi-billion dollar, they did $13 billion last year. And I currently work for North Point Ministries, which was recently named the largest church in America. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's even important. But the point is that I've worked for 2 thriving organizations. And I said, what a blessing. And my mentor pushed back and said, it is a blessing, but it's a stewardship responsibility. What did you learn? And I thought, that's a great question. I think I learned how to grow an organization. And so I want to talk about 2 questions that can help grow an organization, but specifically where we're going today is we're going to talk about how these 2 questions, Colin, can ultimately grow you as a person. So these are great. These 2 questions are great for growing your business, but they're even more important for growing you. And as we grow, so grows the business. But that said, before we get to those 2 questions, let me give you an overview kind of where we're going.
Okay.
We're going to kind of process through 4 other questions. This is kind of the overview, which will lead us into these 2 questions. But to let you know where we're going, and first of all, as Colin said, we're so grateful that you're here, so grateful that you tuned in, and we hope today is very encouraging and helpful for you. And so here's what we want to do in these few minutes that we have together. We're going to talk about how do I come out of this season. And by the way, as our mutual friend Mark Cole says, it's not if we come out, it's when we come out of this season. But how are we going to come out? And that's actually a choice. There are certainly things that we don't have control over, but there are some things that we do have control over. And we're going to talk about that. How do we leverage this season, right? We're going to talk about that. How do I find strength in this season? And how do I find hope in this season? And I certainly don't want to diminish the challenges of this season. Leaders don't deny a crisis, but leaders help define a crisis. And Colin, you know this, there's that old political statement. I'm not sure I love it that much, but I think it's actually true, where politicians tell each other, never waste a crisis. And I don't know if I like that statement or not, but I think it's actually true because it can provide us to somewhere. History tells us that in crisis, in history, there are generally 2 groups of people: those who come out thriving and those who choose to remain victims. And we're going to talk about how to do that as well. And that's why when I was watching your conversation with John and John Maxwell and Mark Cole, John made this statement in his talk when he went to visit Nelson Mandela's prison. And he walked out and someone asked him about it. And John said, you can't imprison greatness. Whew. I mean, that was so powerful when I first heard that. And so what I think Colin and I want to tell you today, for those of you that are watching, there's greatness in you. And the only person that can ultimately imprison us and imprison our greatness is you and me. So that's kind of where we're going. We want to talk about how do you get through this, leverage this, and come out of it thriving.
Wow. So if you think about what you just said, it's interesting. You said you don't deny this crisis, but we don't have to be defined by it. Rather, we can define how we go through this crisis. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, when you and I were talking before, Jeff, you made the statement that we could look at it kind of the way people think of movies. So could you maybe kind of flesh that out for everybody so that they could be kind of clued in what we were talking about earlier?
Absolutely. Well, Donald Miller wrote a book called Story Brand, which I would highly recommend. And he talked about the fact that in any movie, there are generally 4 groups of people. There's the victim, right? There's the villain, there's the hero, and then there's a guide or mentor. So you got a victim, you got a villain, you got a hero, and you got a guide or mentor. So let's take Batman, all right? And hang with me, this is actually going somewhere. So the victims are the citizens of Gotham City, right? The villain is, let's say, the Joker, at least in the Dark Knight movie. Obviously, the hero is Batman. And the guide is Alfred, the butler, right? Star Wars applies this as well. In fact, if you look at any movie, at least any good movie, this is what you'll ultimately see. So in Star Wars, it's the victims are those in the galaxy. The villain is Darth Vader. The hero is Luke Skywalker. And the guide is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So here's why I tell you this. That's not just true for movies. It's true for life. And so in your life right now, there's a story being written. It's called COVID-19 and How You Respond. And there are 4 characters in your story. There are victims, if you will. There's a villain, there's a hero, and there's a guide. And when you read books, when you tune in to Sewell Leadership, what Colin is trying to do is to bring guides to you to help guide, inspire, and mentor you. But The point of this, Colin, is that we have a choice in the story. And the choice is, which role are you going to play in your story? Are you going to play the role of victim, or are you going to play the role of hero? And just hang with me for a little bit, because I know it's easy to push back and say, Jeff, you don't understand my story. You don't understand my situation. And that is totally true. And again, we're not trying to deny how difficult this is. But what we're saying is that you still have the power. We still have the power to define which role that we have. And even if you kind of think this illustration is a little silly, let me just challenge you to do this. Here's why I tell you this story, or this example. Look at your story, look at your situation, and ask yourself this question. In your story, what would a hero do?
It's a great question.
In your story, in this moment, Jeff, I've gotten furloughed. Jeff, I've gotten laid off. Jeff, this is happening. Jeff, this is happening. Totally understand that. That's reality. As Colin said at the very beginning, we can't deny reality. You have to define reality, right? But what would a hero do in your situation? Figure that out and do that. It's not easy, but it's pretty simple. So I think that idea, and that's why, when John said you can't imprison greatness, what he's saying is you can't imprison a hero.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if we can see our lives as a movie script and see ourselves as we get to write this story with God's help, it puts things in proper perspective, because you can't have a good movie if you don't have conflict, if you don't have tension. And we all have conflict right now, right? We all have tension. This is the moment when heroes rise. And that's why Colin's doing this.
Yeah. So the question is, in your story, what would a hero do?
Yeah. And it's all different. It's different.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said it's a choice, right? Because we can choose whether or not we want to be the victim or the hero in our own story. I read John Wooden said one time, there's a choice you make in everything you do. Be careful of the choices you make, because in the end, the choice you make makes you.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. When you said we have a choice, right? There's two stories that we're going to tell about how we get through this crisis. So if we think about that, how do we leverage this season then, Jeff, to kind of write a whole new ending? John Maxwell, obviously you and I have learned a ton from him. He's made a statement, although you may not be able to go back and make a brand new start, my friend, anybody can start from now and make a brand new end. So how do we leverage that to write a better story as we go through this?
So I want to give you three questions. Two questions and a bonus question. No additional charge for the bonus question, by the way.
There you go.
But three questions that I think can help you write this script. And we're going to talk about this for a little bit, but one of the things that this is going to require is for us to think and to look at blank sheets of paper right now and to draft and to write. And so if you and I were sitting down and you would say, okay, Jeff, I want to write a hero script that 10 years from now, I want to be able to say, hey, in the COVID-19 crisis, here's what I did. Here's how I reacted. Here's how I chose to come out of this as a hero. I want to give you three questions that can help give you some answers and lead you as you write this script. So question number one is, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? Now, let me give you a couple of examples in the business world of how this works, but ultimately where we're going today is to talk about how this can impact you personally as you write your hero script. So let's take a company called Zappos. Zappos is an online shoe retailer. And when you could say that, hey, they want to be known for selling shoes, but that's not actually what they wanted to be known for. They want to be known for delivering happiness. And they believe that if they deliver enough happiness to customers, customers will deliver happiness to them. Now, these two words, delivering happiness, it took a long time for them to really craft in a statement. But a lot of organizations, there's not a lot of clarity on this question. And when there's confusion in the office space about this, when there's confusion in the office space, there's confusion in the marketplace. Because if the team doesn't understand what the organization and the company wants to be known for, I can guarantee you the customer will not know. So let's pick on my world, for example, as a pastor. When we began our church, this is one of the questions I asked is, what do we want to be known for? And we weren't known for anything because we weren't existing as a church. So we said, what is the church globally known for? And someone in that early meeting said, well, many people are more familiar with what the church is against rather than what the church is for. We should be known for what we're for and who we're for. And that really launched this movement called For Gwinnett, and so many other churches around the world have picked it up, which is so wonderful. But the point is this question seems really easy. It's not easy. It is simple, but it's not easy. And so one of the things that you need to do, one of the things that you and I need to do, is we need to think about 5 years from now. And Colin, I know, in the season you think 5 years, Jeff, I'm just trying to make it 5 days from now, right? I mean,
maybe 5.
I totally understand that.
Yeah, maybe.
And so 5 years is a long time, right? But work with me here, right? Even if you want to go a year out, but if 5 years is too long, totally get that, just go a year out. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, 5 years out. What do you want to be known for 5 years from now? And begin to write that out. What would you want your life to look like financially? What would you want your life to look like relationally? What would you like your life to look like emotionally? What would you like your life to look like physically? See, this opportunity is an opportunity for all of us. This season is an opportunity for all of us to take stock and to not feel guilty, but to, as Colin said at the very beginning, to define reality. Where are there things that when we look at our lives, that we want to change? And so there's a biblical vision, a perspective on this that says, without vision, people perish. Without vision, the people perish. And you have got to come out of this thing. You have got to reinforce. If you don't have a compelling vision right now for your life, you've got to do that right now. Not just for you, but for the people in your life. So when we do the Sewell Leadership event, and we're all there in person, whenever that is, and I may or may not do this, but if I were to come up to you and say, hey, what do you want to be known for? Because remember, back in the crisis, you had time to think through this. What do you want to be known for? And this vision, one of my favorite definitions of vision is a compelling picture of the future that produces passion in me. So what is your compelling vision of the future that is outweighing the fear, outweighing the anxiety, outweighing the uncertainty? What is your vision of a preferred future? Do you have problems now? Absolutely. Do you have challenges now? Absolutely. It's ripe for a hero to appear. And ultimately what we're talking about, Colin, is a good name. Proverbs 22 verse 1 says, a good name is more desirable than great riches. And I love that, because do you know a pandemic can't take away your good name? Only you can do that. An oil crisis, an oil situation can't take away your good name. Only you can do that. In my world, imagine my world as a pastor. Our church, quote unquote, has been shut down, and the crisis of all of that, that could, make me worried and all of that. But none of that can take away my good name. Only I can do that. And so in these days, it's really helpful to go, what do I want my good name to stand for and to be for? So I want to give you, if it's okay, Colin, I want to give you some examples about how to do that, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So we got this time, right? Somebody texted me today, which I love this question. I can relate to this question. They said, what day is this? I don't know if you've, is today Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Every day it seems a little bit the same. But one of the ways that you can leverage this time is this may sound a little weird, I totally understand, especially with a virus, but Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he challenges us to write your eulogy, which sounds weird, I get it. But I'm telling you, if you write your eulogy and say, this is what I want people to say about me, what you're doing is you're defining what you want to be known for. And the scriptures also say this in Ecclesiastes, which seems a little weird. It says, it is better to go to a day of mourning than a day of feasting, because a wise person, I know this sounds weird, but I think there's truth here. A wise person thinks a lot about death. And here's why I think that statement is true. When we go to a funeral, isn't it true that suddenly the things that we thought were really important kind of begin to shrink away, and the things that are really important begin to take its proper perspective? That's why it's important not to waste this crisis. And we've got to think through, what do you want to be known for? So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to do something I call Think 30. Think 30. This is a fantastic practice to do on a consistent basis. Here's how it looks. I don't know about you, but I would sometimes rather want to check email than think. Thinking is really hard. Thinking, actually, just so you know, there's brain research that says that the brain doesn't like thinking because thinking requires energy. And the main job of your brain is to protect you and to conserve energy. All right. So when you think, you're putting your brain, you're spending a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And your brain works against that. Okay. So just need to know that. That's why if you're writing a talk, and like for me, that's what I do, part of my job. It's so easy if I'm not careful, Colin. Before I know it, I'm watching, cat videos on YouTube because I want to do anything else other than just sit there and look at a blank screen, right?
Right. Yeah.
So Think 30, here's what Think 30 is. You set your phone for 30 minutes and you turn everything off and you have a blank sheet of paper. Let me show you something that we actually do here. This is called a pen. I don't know if y'all have seen these things before. and it's not doing this. Yeah, there you go. And you're actually writing out. And you write out, here's what I want to be known for. And you go for 30 minutes and you don't stop. And even if you get to a point, Colin, where it's like, I don't know what else to write, you write, I don't know what else to write. And what you're doing is you're engaging your brain for 30 minutes. Then you stop. And then you begin to circle themes. And if you don't do that, if you don't get a good theme or you don't get some great language, then you go and do it for another 10 minutes, okay? My hunch is if you did this twice, you would have defined for yourself what you want to be known for. It can be something in your relationships, all that. But 30 minutes may seem like a short amount of time. I'm telling you, it is a long amount of time. And if you'll do this, so one of my challenges for all of us, do this for 30 minutes. Do this today while this is fresh on your brain. So what you want to do at the top of your page, you put what I want to be known for. You set your phone and you go. And you don't do anything. You don't pick that pen up until the phone alarm rings at the end of 30 minutes. Then again, you circle themes. You circle things that stand out. And then you begin to craft this statement that becomes your vision for the next 5 years. So that's question number one, what we want to be known for.
That's awesome.
How's that sound?
I think that sounds like people are going to get a lot of writer's cramp if they take that, because there's probably a lot of us who have not written anything for 30 minutes, maybe in our whole life, let alone in the last few years, because technology has changed that. Why do you think writing is so important? What's the difference in that in typing, you think? There's a lot of people can say, oh, I want to keep it on OneNote, or I want to keep it in my notes section on my phone.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately you can. So ultimately when you craft this, you can. There's brain research that says that there's something powerful about the brain connecting to your hand and writing like this. And I don't quite understand why that is, but research after research says that this is important. The other thing you have to realize too is you've got to give yourself the permission to write really bad things. I mean, I do this with my sermon bottom lines. When I understand what I want to talk about, and I've got the Bible verses I want to preach on and all that, I'm looking for a bottom line. Colin, I have no doubt written some of the worst sermon bottom lines in the history of the church, okay? But that's okay, because I've got to push through the bad to get through the good. So if you're writing this and you're like, oh, this is so terrible, this is a no judgment zone, okay? And here's the thing, just try it out. If I'm wrong, you can have your money back from our time together today. But I'm telling you, my hunch is is when you're done from those 30 minutes, there's going to be at least one thing that pops out that's going to frame your next 5 years and give you a compelling vision for the next 5 years and through this crisis. And why is that important? Well, I think the scriptures are true, Colin. Without vision, we perish. And we might survive physically, but man, we just get hammered by the anxiety and the uncertainty if we're not anchored with a compelling vision.
Got it. Okay. So question number one is, what do I want to be known for?
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do next?
Yep. So here's the pesky question. If you thought that was pesky, this one's probably more challenging. Okay. So question number one, what do you want to be known for? And let's buckle up a little bit. Okay. Question number two is, what are you known for? What are you known for? And here's the reality. You and I get to answer question number one. You and I don't get to answer question number two. We can influence it, and we do influence question number two. But do you know who gets to answer question number two? It's the people in your life. So for example, Colin, if I'm like, you know what, Colin, I'm the most amazing husband. I am just so incredible. It's great. Do you know who you have to ultimately go to? Yeah. You have to go to Wendy and go, hey, Wendy, Jeff's been talking a great game about how great of a husband is. Can you, is this true? Or if I'm like, Colin, I want to be a great dad. I want to be a wonderful dad. Do you know who you have to go to get the answer to that question? You have to go to my daughter, Jessie, and you have to go to my son, Cole. So this is going to require us to really take and this is what this season can provide if we'll allow it to. We got to have a gut check. We got to go, you know what? What am I really known for in this season? What am I known for in my relationships? What am I known for financially? And this is why this is so important. And I totally understand this. And please understand, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way. I totally understand why people would do this. But please do not medicate this season away entirely.
Well, it's a great statement.
Rest in the pain and uncertainty of this. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't deal with anxiety with medicine. I'm not making that statement at all. I am just saying, make sure that you wrestle with this question and actually go to people and ask them some questions. So let me give you a couple of ways to get at this question. Here's a challenging question that you could ask to the people in your life. And that is, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to be on the other side of me as an employee, as a boss, as a coworker, as a spouse, as a friend, as a son, as a daughter? What's it like to be on the other side of me? That's another way to say, what are you known for? And let me tell you, you're going to get 3 answers to that question. You're going to get some encouraging information, things that you didn't know about you. You're going to get some surprising information, things you didn't know about you. And you're going to get your feelings hurt. All right? So that's what's going to happen. Now, here's the reality. This question, both of these questions, what are you known for? And what's it like to be on the other side of me? It's going to require courage. It's going to require you going, hey, I'm going to pull the rock up and see all the squiggly things under there. A lot of us don't want to pull the rock up. We don't want to look at what the answers to these 2 questions provide. But when we don't ask these questions, when we don't ask, hey, what am I known for, really? And what's it like to be on the other side of me? Here's the challenge. We forfeit knowing the answers that everyone else already knows. And we're the only ones that don't know it. And when we don't know the answers to this question, it puts a lid on our growth as human beings. And when you put a lid on your growth, you put a lid on your business growth, you put a lid on your emotional growth, you put a lid on your leadership growth. If you don't understand, if your emotional awareness is not increasing, you'll put a lid on your leadership. So for me, I think asking this question is really, really important because it brings you to answers that you might not otherwise know. So what's it like to be on the other side of me? The other thing is, one of the things we need to really ask ourselves is, and this is so challenging because this season is wearing down our inspiration, but when it comes to heroes, own a space in the land of possibility, and they lease a space in the land of reality. So heroes own a space in the land of possibility, and they lease a space in the land of reality. And many times it's the opposite of that. We'll go visit possibility for a couple of days, and then we'll go back to the land of reality. And in this season, another mini question that we have to ask in the season is, what does this season make possible? What does this season make possible for my business that maybe I didn't see before? So for example, for me, one of the things that we're seeing that was always there, but we just didn't leverage it like we're being forced to right now, is Facebook Live events where I'm chatting directly with our church and doing what you're doing. This was always there, but I've been doing this with our church right after our online services, and it's been phenomenal. People are coming in, and this is one of the ways we're staying engaged with our church. But our leadership team said yesterday, we can't stop this. We got to continue to do this when we go on. So I would ask everybody in this season, the second question, what are you known for? This is a season to take stock. This is a season to go, where are there gaps? And here's the other reality, Colin. If you think about it from the business world, let's go back to the business, because these two questions, what do you want to be known for? And what are you known for? They're great questions for businesses, but great questions for us as individuals. So if a business has defined what they want to be known for, and the second question is, what are you known for? There's a gap, because there is no perfect organization. But the goal of every business should be to come to work every day to close the gap between those two questions, right? So let me give you an example from Chick-fil-A world in terms of how they do this. If you were to ask Dan Cathy, the CEO of Chick-fil-A, what do you want to be known for as an organization? They would say this: we want to be known as the world's most caring company. You'll notice there's not the word chicken in there at all. They want to be known for being the world's most caring company. So that's the answer to question number one. What do you want to be known for? Question number two is, what are you known for? This is where the customers get to answer this, right? And every single day for Chick-fil-A, they get to close the gap between those two questions. And when you understand that, the silos of an organization begin to fall away, and everybody's really clear that our goal is to close the gap between what we want to be known for and what we are known for. While that's true for Chick-fil-A, it's also true for you. So what do you want to be known for? What are you currently known for? Find those gaps. Define those gaps in this season. Develop a vision of how you're going to close the gap, so that when someone reads the eulogy that you wrote, or at least a vision of what you want said about you when your life is over, there's not a gap. It's consistent between those two. And so there's a final question that we can talk about as well, but I'm going to just pause, see if you had any questions about any of that, Colin.
Absolutely. So yes, before you give us this bonus question, we had one of our viewers ask, Ms. Alvarado asked, in your Think 30 scenario, how would you suggest, or do you think that time still works for elementary age or teenage young men and women? In other words, is it still Think 30, or do you think we should shrink that down, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I would shrink it down. I would shrink it down to 10 minutes for sure. And again, and I have two of these. I have two wonderful kids. They don't do a lot of this, right? So it's not the writing. So I would shrink it down to 10 minutes. And then I would probably shrink the time horizon. Hey, what do you want to be known for in this school year? Or, let's say if it's in the fall, it's the beginning of the school year. What do you want this school year? What do you want to be known for as a junior in high school? What do you want to be known for as a freshman in college? What do you want to be known for? And the thing that I'm so encouraged about, Colin, is the next generation. We did this Instagram live event with our high school students the other night, and I told them, I said, hey, because they were asking, Jeff, how do we respond to this? And I said, well, let me tell you. First of all, I have no credibility to tell you as a high school student how to deal with this, because when I was in high school, we did not go through a global pandemic where our school year was canceled. Okay, so I don't know how that feels. I can give you some principles to help you, and we talked about what we're talking about here. But the fact that these students at that age are thinking about this, I think God's going to use this. I think God's entrusting them with this season. So yeah, but I would shrink, long answer to your question, I would shrink it down to 10 minutes for sure.
So one other quick question on that. So have you followed this process long enough, Jeff, that maybe you have actually arrived at being able to answer the question, I think I've really closed the gap fully on what I want to be known for? And then have you been able to ask the question again? In other words, raise the bar for yourself? Have you been following this process long enough to see that happen?
Well, I've certainly not closed the gap. So, and I don't think I ever will, but I like the fact that it bothers me on a daily basis. And so let me give you a couple of ways. This isn't an exhaustive list, but let me give you a couple of ways of how I answer a question number one and how I try to live out question number two. So one of the things I want to be known for is I want to be known for being for the person right in front of me. So right now, that's you, Colin, and the Sewell leadership event. I want to be fully focused. I'm even wearing a sport coat at home because I wanted to be. You've got a pocket square because I wanted to focus on you all. Yeah. And whether it's the barista at the coffee shop, whether it's a fellow team member, whoever is right in front of me, I want to be fully present so that when they walk away, they go, "Wow, he was for me." That's why I've told our kids when we go out to dinner, when the waiter or waitress comes over, or even if it's in the counter, we honor this person. Absolutely. With all due respect. And so we always get their names, and sometimes the kids give me a hard time. Dad, they don't care that you know their names. But for me, I want to be for the person right in front of me. So that helps drive me. Do I do that all the time? No, I'm a human being, but the fact that it bothers me is a really big thing. Yeah. One of the other ways I answered this question for me, Colin, there's a passage in the scriptures where Jesus says, "When I return to the earth, will I find faith?" And so one of the ways I answered this question is, what do I want to be known for? I want to be known for being found faithful. Yeah. In other words, if Jesus were to come back and he would say, "Jeff, what do you want to be known for?" "I want to be known for being a great husband," all that, as we talked about earlier. He would have to go to Wendy and say, "Is Jeff a great husband? Was Jeff a great dad? Was Jeff a great employer?" All of that. I want to be found faithful in those moments, in those relationships. So for me, every day is an opportunity for me to be found faithful. Not just minimal obligations. I'm talking exceeding those obligations to the best that I can. Do I get it perfect? No, I don't think perfection is the goal. I think excellence is. And I've told our church before, I did a sermon series called Better. If I can release you from perfection and set that aside, and if I can put a better challenge, which is simply called, how can I get better today? That's a much better approach, no pun intended. And if I get better every single day, I shrink the gap between those two questions. So for me, there's a lot more ways, but those are two ways that I try to stay focused on these questions. That I want to be for the person right in front of me, and I want to be found faithful to the roles in my life. Because what it comes down to, Colin, it comes down to stewardship. And there's not just financial stewardship, that's true, but there's relational stewardship, there's physical stewardship, there's emotional stewardship, there's leadership stewardship. And so I want to be found faithful in those roles so that when my story is done, people can comment that I was for them. My greatest compliment, I would think, is that what people would say, "You know what? One of the things I've experienced with Jeff is that he was genuinely more for me than he was for himself." I think that's a great human strategy. I think it's actually, we're going to see it's a great business strategy as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, well, we only have a few more minutes with you. You've been awesome. I've learned a ton. I've taken my notes. The good news is you let me record this, so I get to watch it again and more notes since we've been dialoguing. So what's this bonus question, this final question that you want people to ask themselves today?
Yeah, this bonus question, I think, is probably more impactful now because of the crisis that we're in than maybe before, because I think it was a little harder to see when everything's going great. Isn't it interesting, by the way, that sometimes life, what's most important, is hard to see when everything's going swimmingly well. And I think that kind of goes back to the Ecclesiastes passage that we talked about earlier. So this bonus question is, if you know what if you hear this today and you're like, okay, what do I want to be known for? And what am I known for? That's interesting. The bonus question, the question number 3 is, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? I mean, we need to make sure that the great information that's coming your way from John Maxwell and Andy Andrews, and I think you got 10 more coming up. Is that right, Colin?
In a few weeks. Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know if I just let the cat out of the bag for that.
You're good.
Sorry about that. You can edit this part out on the recording. Once I receive great information from a Colin Sewell or John Maxwell, I feel like I have a stewardship responsibility to do something with it. So the question here is, what are you waiting for? And this is your hero moment. Now, it can be, for me, let's just pick on me, this can be my hero moment or this can be my victim moment. Either way, I'm writing it. But what am I waiting? What am I waiting for? And Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, would always say, take advantage of unexpected opportunities. Take advantage of unexpected opportunities. And I remember Truett one time saying that, and Truett was maybe the nicest person I've ever met, other than my wife. And Truett said this one time. He said, I don't wish anyone any harm, but I kind of wish everyone could experience a Great Depression in their life because they would truly understand what's most important.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I think Truett was incredibly generous with the billions of dollars that was entrusted to him is because he lived through the Great Depression and he knew what was most important in life, so that when the money started flowing, it didn't change him. He lived in the same house. He and his wife Jeanette lived in the same house when they just owned one little bitty small restaurant in downtown Atlanta. And this season can teach us something, but it's a stewardship opportunity and responsibility for us to listen and to act. I heard this quote the other day, Colin, that said, our character in the drought is what people will talk about in the harvest. So when this storm passes, and let me assure you, it is going to pass.
That's right.
And in fact, we're already seeing, Colin, I mean, one death is way too many, okay? One death is way too many. But what we're seeing is that the projections of what we were initially hearing is nowhere near what we thought. It is nowhere near what we're experiencing. Now, one death is way too many, not making light of any.
Sure.
But this season will pass. So when this storm passes, and it is a storm, what will be your story? What will people write? And for me, at Gwinnett Church, Colin, what I want people to say when the storm passes, and this may take a while, that's fine. But you know what? Jeff didn't deny the reality, and he didn't shy away from what was the pain and heartache of what we were going through. But in the middle of all that, he pointed us to a hope. And for me, our hope isn't in a religion. Our hope is in a person, Jesus. And so that's why I can have hope today. Now, whether you're a Jesus person or not, I think there's hope available to you today. So I want you to write a better story. Write a greater story than you even think is possible. Because there are people that have done that. My mom, Colin, is 92. So imagine what she has experienced in her life. All right. She's gone through a world war. She went through World War II. She and my dad got married when they were 17. She said she wouldn't recommend that, by the way. They had their honeymoon, and then he went off to World War II to the Philippines. She didn't see him again for 9 months. Imagine that. Then she also lived through, during that time, she lived through the scare of polio. I think we've forgotten how devastating polio was, right? We've forgotten all about that. She lived through the assassination of John F. Kennedy. She lived through a lot of wonderful things. The last 7 years, she has lived through losing, my dad passed away 7 years ago. So they were married over 60 years. So imagine this, being married for over 60 years, and then for the last 7 years, you've missed your soulmate.
Yeah.
But my mom, I had her pray for our church the other day, and she said, every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. And I would, if you can get in front of somebody that's in their 90s or 80s and have them talk to you about life as they look back, I think that will be important, especially those that have vision and are writing a great story. So hero or victim, that's our choice in this moment. My hope is that these questions will help you write a greater story out of this storm than you might even think is possible. And if you don't believe me, if you're pushing back, I totally understand, but you owe it to yourself to at least do a Think 30. You owe it to yourself to ask some people in your life, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What am I known for? And to try to shrink the gap between those questions. But if you won't do it for you, do it for us. Do it for the rest of us, because we need you. We need your story. We need you engaged. We need you optimistic. We need you hopeful. We need you believing in better days. Because if you believe in better days, they will come. That's kind of how this works.
Jeff, that's awesome. Thank you. I wanted to share with you, this is a quote that I've really hung with in my world that I think really applies to what you just said. Because don't you think the reality is we are going to write a story of how we get through this storm? The question is, what kind of story are we going to write? Will we write one on purpose, or will we write one by default and accident? And J.M. Barrie, who is the author of Peter Pan, said this. He said, the life of every man is a diary in which he means to write one story and writes another. And his humblest hour is when he compares the volume as it is with what he had vowed to make it.
That's fantastic.
So you have really encouraged all of us today to understand that we're going to write a story, whether we do it on purpose or whether we do it by accident, whether we are the victim or whether we'll choose to be the hero in our families. Thank you for that. Can I ask you a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
So if you think about that, one of the viewers asked the question, you used the term stewardship, and I think that as leaders in our homes, in our communities, in our companies, that part of being a steward as a leader is to be a really great servant leader. And you alluded to just a few minutes ago that if you alluded to that you're counting, that people are counting on others to write great stories right now for how they're going to get through this. What's your advice to those of us who are leaders in organizations just like yourself? What is it that you're saying to yourself? What is it that you're saying to your folks? How are you encouraging yourself? And then as a result, how are you encouraging your teams?
Well, the first person, and we've learned this from we've learned this from John Maxwell, is the first person that you lead is yourself. And I've got to, it's the old analogy, and it's mentioned before, but it's the airplane analogy. When the oxygen mask drops, you got to take oxygen first before you put it on the other person. So the best gift that I can give the people that I serve is an emotionally healthy me, is the best version of me that I can give. So that's why there's some certain strategies, such as I think sleep is really important right now. I think a good day, a principle that I heard years ago, a good day begins the night before. I was talking to Michael Hyatt recently, and Michael says that one of the things that he's doing right now is to make sure that his routines are in place. So he gets up, gets ready, and he works, even though he's quarantined like all of us. He's going to another room and he's working. And but he's trying to make sure that he is working on himself. And again, one of the best things that we can do is to remain inspired and to keep dreaming, keep asking big. And I encourage people to ask big all the time. And I remember when I asked John Maxwell to write the foreword to my book, I'm like, there's no way that John Maxwell. And then when John said yes, I'm like, oh my goodness. Then I tried to get the publisher to put his name in a bigger font size than mine, but that didn't work out too well. But so, or how inspired are you? And it's hard to be inspired in these days, but taking care of yourself. So one of the things I'm really trying to do is to read more and more and more of people who did great things. Right now, I'm just reading through the book of Psalms, and or just one song after another, and just really meditating on those verses and letting those verses, because it's very honest. If you read the book of Psalms, it's not light. I mean, it's a lot of these verses are, God, where are you? God, don't let this happen. And God, show up. I love that. And so I think making sure that I am leading myself well is the best gift I can give the people that I serve.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Will you do me a favor? Tell everybody what the name of your book is. It just came out this last fall.
Yes, it's called Know What You're For. Know What You're For, and it's a growth strategy for, but an even better strategy for life. And where you go through those two questions and talk about the 4 groups of people that you're for, it's been so fun. And I was going to talk about that at the Sewell Leadership event. Hopefully we can do that again. But my hope is that this book will help organizations, businesses, and churches grow and help the world become a better place as they grow.
Well, as a gift from our team and Jeff, from you, for all of you that are watching, the great news is if you go to teamsewell.com/leadership, just like last week with Andy Andrews, Jeff, there's a link where all the folks who are interested for the first 500 people have an opportunity to get a copy of your book. So we're going to send it to you if you go to teamsewell.com/leadership. You can fill that information out. We're going to send you a copy of Jeff's book so that he can really continue to help and pour into you. Jeff, thank you. Absolutely. You've been amazing. You have absolutely been amazing. You're a friend. The Atlanta area is better because of you, and all of the Permian Basin is as well because of your time today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Colin. I look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you a big hug when I see you too.
Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. For all of you who are able to watch, please tune in next week. Another great Atlanta friend of mine, Dr. Ike Reichert, is going to be with us next week. And then in the coming weeks after that, Jeff, your friends and mine, Dr. Tim Elmore is going to be one of our guests, as well as David Salyers, one of your old running buddies from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And so we have a great lineup for the next 3 weeks. We're going to do everything we can to continue to encourage you and do exactly what Jeff offered, which is to make sure that we continue to feed ourselves with great wisdom, great truth, so that we can be the kind of leaders that our families, our businesses, our communities, and quite frankly, our entire nation needs. Jeff, if you'll do me one final thing before we sign off, would you pray for all of us before we leave everybody today? Okay.
Absolutely. Father, we're grateful and thank you that you're above the challenges with an oil crisis and challenges with the virus. We know that you're above this. And I want to pray for everyone who knows someone who's struggling with this sickness or illness or struggling right now, that this time will be comforting and encouraging for them. Thank you for Colin, for the Sewell team. And we look forward to the day of being back together. I pray for those that are going to think through these questions, and would you give them the answers and the guidance and the insights so that they can define over the next 5 years what they want to be known for. Have the courage to ask people, hey, what am I known for? And then to really go, you know what am I waiting for? Let's go for it. I pray that we would write a heroic story, but ultimately may you take the pen and may you write the story and may you give us your vision for our lives. And so I pray for financial blessing. These are challenging days in so many ways. So many people are struggling financially. So we pray for those that are struggling, pray for those that are out of work. We pray for comfort and peace and provision. And may our eyes be eyes from the heart, eyes of hope and eyes of faith. And for those that may not know you, we pray for them today, that maybe this is a moment where they can turn their attention to you and discover your great love for them as a perfect Heavenly Father. So we love you. Pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Jeff, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us.